Hi, everybody. It's Mike from Here the Watchman. And, I'm so glad to be back here with you today doing the Watchman's Report. We've had some crazy stuff happening. We had the whole nuclear event up in Washington that I reported about yesterday and then again today. But now we're going to change course a little bit. We're going to go over across the pond to our watchman on the pond, our correspondent, so to speak, in London, a regular guest here, Mr. Mark Sutherland. And Mark is a film producer, just an amazing guy, knowledgeable on many things, but especially on what's happening in London and the UK. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure and great to see you, my friend. Lovely to be back here.
Good to see you. Now, listen, there's a lot going on over on your side of the pond. And we had this whole election in France, and there's a new regime. And all of us over here are very concerned about that. There's a new liberal presence there. You have, or not you, but France has a president who said publicly that they deserved everything they got from the terrorist attacks because of their position against Muslims. And now he's in power and he's bringing this Muslim regime into France. Is Paris burning, and what does that effect have on the UK?
Again, you asked some very interesting questions, and it's great to be put on the spot. On one sense, what you quoted as Macron as saying, I can't really comment on that. I've never heard him say that. I've heard him say a lot of other things. I mean, within Paris, the setup is this: is that within inner city Paris, it's extremely nice, etc., etc. Gay Paris, the elites all live there and all the rest. But in the suburbs, there has been some very sadly, some various things that are going on in regard to some of the council blocks and the tenant blocks and all the rest, and that is on video. At the moment, I cannot give any comment in regard to, as you've said, is Paris burning or is its suburbs burning? We have seen a complete lockdown in regard to the emails that were revealed about Emmanuel Macron. That was completely shut down. The French government were told that they couldn't report the French press were encouraged not to report these and all the rest. So, Mike, at times it must lead us to believe about, as we know with Europe, because you're observing that over there and so are many other things, how is there certain elements of press control and all the rest? And you're absolutely right. Over the last week and a half, it's been, we've had the French election, of course, the globalist. And people go, well, hold on, Mark, what do you mean? Well, we look at an he was a Rothschild banker, etc. Suddenly this guy came completely from nowhere and is now then president of France, a man that when we have this whole debate, of saying globalist against someone who's a nationalist. And then what happens is the nationalists then get called a bunch of, right wingers, racist and all the rest. In other words, if you believe in actually having a controlled border around your country, you are completely written off under those two types of words. If you are a globalist, you then say we have open borders. We believe in basically, I think, global governance. And to me, as I might have explained earlier a number of weeks ago, the EU is actually a leg of global governance. Now, that's quite a shock to some people to listen to. So when, like, we joined in 1973, we thought we were joining the common market. In 2010, it became a political union. And within a day or 48 hours, Macron is then saying to leaders of the EU, you now need to appoint an EU-wide finance minister and all the rest. And of course, there were all these accusations of him being financed by George Soros. And Mike, it's fascinating that you had Obama as the 44th president who came from nowhere. And where has Mr. Macron been? And of course, your 44th president, who doesn't seem to disappear, then completely makes some video saying you must vote for this man. Now, I can't give you. I've forgotten the number. I have to say, I'm going to try and think of this, but the fact is that there were huge abstentions in this election, Mike. Many people either went in, destroyed their ballot papers, wrote all over them, blah de blah. But there were a lot of abstentions, and I have to say this, and I suppose maybe I'm too much of a cynic, where they seem to do their count for a country the size of France extremely quickly to actually come up with a result.
Well, that's something that I thought that it came real quick. The other thing that amazed me, and I don't know if this is voter apathy or what it is. I mean, maybe you caught the American syndrome here in France, but it was I forget what it was, but there were a lot of people that didn't vote. Period. They just didn't show up, and that's been a problem we've had in America for years. I mean, years. I mean, I think the highest voter turnout was for that man, Obama, and it's still questionable about what drove that high voter turnout for that election, and that's what worries me about France.
Well, maybe. Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say maybe in your case it was the fact that the Democrats put their voters on a bus and drove them round to vote at various same polling stations within New York. I mean, as Project Veritas then revealed. So, and also within the French election, and Paul Joseph Watson showed this, was the fact that when ballot papers were given out, they seemed to not have Le Pen and Macron. They seemed to have Emmanuel Macron ×2. Now, I'm sure that within the French situation that you could go along to a polling station and say, I need another ballot paper. And like our system, you've got a name and you've got a number, and they would have to sort that out. I don't know, unless they have electronic voting systems that are paid by George Soros, just like you've just been through. I mean, Mike, the parallels are quite astounding, really, if we think about it. If we trace back to like Bill Clinton in '92, we then have Tony Blair in '97, right? And then we go on to see that there's Trudeau in Canada at the moment. You were having a wonderful, excellent interview with Audrey Arby about that the other day. And then suddenly then of course there's been Obama, and now before Trudeau, or that same time, or just at the end of that. And now we've got Macron. And I do believe that a lot of people are awake to this and may be deeply frustrated that they can't do anything about it. Maybe that's the abstentions in France are partly because I think with Le Pen and her father, who has no doubt about it in the past, fairly anti-Semitic, and there are issues of racism and all the rest there. And she at one point actually kicked her own father out of the party. So for the French, with the whole thing of Vive la République and all the rest, there are huge issues there. For a lot of people, they actually couldn't then vote for her. And they then couldn't vote for Macron. I think for Donald Trump, people came out and voted like they've never before in America, haven't they? Some people haven't voted for 30 years. And I think you've even seen the fact that the Amish went out and voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's astounding. The French, as far as Americans go, they were really happy when we came over there and liberated them during World War II, but they've never seemed to forgive us for it. I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we liberate them, and then they've hated us ever since. So I don't know. But and I'm not saying, folks, I'm not saying they should have stayed under Nazi control at all, but all I'm saying is they've never forgiven us. So, we have a popular television show over here. It's off the air now, but it's on Netflix, and it's kind of interesting. It's a J.J. Abrams show, and it's called Person of Interest. And it's a fascinating show that came out before all of this stuff came out, you know, I forget, maybe eight years ago, where it talks about the artificial intelligence and the battle against it. And I couldn't sleep the other night, and I was watching this, but the George Soros side of the show was saying that the ideal situation would be for there to be no borders anywhere in the world, for there to be one order and the ultimate rule. And I just was blown away. When I saw that, I was like, wow. And this is a mainstream TV show. Of course, it was canceled, but it's just really, really interesting. Now, what has all this done right there in London and throughout the UK? What are people talking about? Are they afraid of the EU? What's going on?
Well, the bottom line is we put up 50 in. We are leaving the EU. We have a prime minister who was a reluctant leaver. She voted to remain, and has suddenly, quickly. I mean, as you know, she wasn't voted in. Cameron resigned, and the election of her becoming prime minister was actually done within MPs. So I, as a citizen of the UK, like everyone else, I haven't actually voted for Theresa May to be the prime minister of our country. Hence why she has then gone to the electorate. One of the reasons why she's gone to the electorate, and I have to say that none of her cabinet knew that she did that, and I don't think any of her MPs who did that, but the two very well paid advisors, £140,000 each, I think they were the only two people that knew. And there's slight cynicism in there, as we may get time to unfold. So in a sense, what's going on? Well, Theresa May phones up Emmanuel Macron and offers congratulations about his win. And then there has been one or two comments about him saying, that we're going to give the UK a hard time over Brexit, blah, 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 in the press from him. If that's true or not, if people are playing, a few games over that quote. So what is going on? The fact is that we're leaving the EU, Mike, even though within our election, and the Labour leader, I think yesterday, was asked all day from various people about, will you be leaving the EU? What does it, will you try and either change that or whatever? And in many ways, he will not answer the question. Jeremy Corbyn is fascinating because he has never believed in the EU and then suddenly had to play a part in the Leave campaign. And I'm convinced that he secretly went into the ballot and actually voted Leave, but he's not going to tell the rest of his party. So there's all these things, and especially when people like Tony Blair, Tony Benn, who were very, very, very much anti-EU all his life, and was deeply, deeply consistent. I may have not believed in his politics, but I respected the fact that he was consistent within that. So we've got all this kind of games. I mean, last week the EU, there was talking about giving us a hard time to leave, and then Theresa May gives a speech the night before or the evening of the council elections, which the Tories did extremely good at. I think they won about 305 seats, where Labour lost minus 140, and UKIP lost loads of seats as well. So very often when you're the opposition party, Mike, when it comes to council elections, it should be a walk in the park. You should be hammering the incumbent political party that's actually inside. So that actually didn't happen. The Labour Party are, to me, the way it's going, where a number of people are praying about this at the moment. And I'd just like to say this, that we could be seeing a complete meltdown of the Labour Party. Now, this isn't going to be popular to say, but in 2014, Ed Miliband, who was then the leader of the Labour Party, and bear in mind that we had an election in 2015, which he lost, He did it wasn't an official vote, but it was like some kind to make a sign about creating a two-state solution in Israel. And they marched through the House of Commons to protest about this and say it needs to be a two-state. Well, personally, I don't think God was very, very pleased about that, and didn't lose the election. Now, to some, it's going to be a shock that we're even discussing the fact that God is interested in our politics. But Genesis 12 makes that very, very clear, which says to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, right? And that is like a statuette that Father gives us to do. We are approaching a very, very interesting date. And as I was discussing this with a dear friend of mine today, on June the 6th is the 50th anniversary of Eastern Jerusalem, the 67 war, and Israel then having complete ownership of Jerusalem. That is on June the 6th. Now, the fact is that we are going to see, I believe, Theresa May, Corbyn, other leaders are going to have to, and also around the world, are going to have to make a comment about that event. And that could also have a huge impact on who is actually going to win this election. Because as much as we live in a supposedly, you know, non-Christian world, blah-de-blah, the fact is God is listening. God is absolutely listening. And also, I will reiterate this. Donald Trump, to turn things around for him, needs to move the embassy to Jerusalem, the American embassy, as soon as. Now, we could do this very easily, as a friend of mine explained. Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. Consulate in Jerusalem, embassy in Tel Aviv. Just take the signs off the buildings and just swap them over. And that's all he has to do, right? He doesn't have to rebuild an embassy. All he's got to do is send someone down there with a screwdriver, take the gold-plated whatever off, and swap them very, very fast. So, and you're right. I don't, that may be a slight bit of humor, but the fact is that these are all these things at play, and these things that you know, a number of us are praying about, and we've got to continue to pray about. At the moment, the media is giving Theresa May, in my opinion, quite an easy time. She's not wanting to really engage. It's more like a sort of presidential in that sense. I mean, if the press engaged her, they could ask her about the fact that after the riots we had in 2011, why was there then pressure after that for her to cut police numbers by 20,000 over, you know, from then on over a certain number of years, and the resources, and the fact that we're seeing police stations shut down and all the rest. That is a truism. And the other thing is like yesterday, suddenly there's we're going to make sure that energy prices are going to be set at a certain point. Now, I do apologize for people watching, because I suddenly realized that I should have maybe put a lamp on in regard to the fact that we're getting dark and the sun is shining.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's gotten darker. If you want,
I'll go and put a light on. I'm going to go and step up. I'm going to put a light on. Hold on.
You know, folks, it's interesting. You know, it's like 10 o'clock at night over there for Mark. So bear with us while we get him lit up here. But you know, it's amazing the perception that we all have on the different sides of the pond, and that is it's so nice to have Mark with us.
And I'm
we can see him now.
We can see me. I do apologize about that, and please, I don't like my
boy, I'll tell you what, it got dark there quick.
It got dark really quick. I also don't like my films in that particular way. But I was just going to say, I want to show you this, right? This is a seminal book, The Greening of America, Charles Rake. This came out, I think, in 1972. Now, we've suddenly reached a point where the whole sort of climate change politics has deeply entered the Conservative Party as well. And there's I find it really, really interesting debate, because to me, the word conservative was conserving conserving traditions, conserving things that were right and all the rest. Now this is fact, and again, it doesn't make us particularly popular to say it. So in 2000, I think 2011, there was Cameron won in the election, but had to couldn't have a complete government, didn't win enough seats, so he had to go into government with the then Liberal Party. So by 2000, round about that time, Theresa May was responsible with Lynn Featherstone to pushing through redefining marriage between man and a woman, and pushing through gay marriage in regard to the UK. That's something that she did. Now, a number of people may not know that, but the bottom line, the big question I have is what, to some extent, is the difference between, Tory conservative sort of manifesto and a Labour manifesto. And someone was arguing that, someone was brilliantly explaining this the other day when we talk about liberal progressive, that actually within both parties there seems to be things that are very, very akin, very, very similar, because the Tory party now has decided to hijack the whole aspect in regard to climate change mythology and whack that into politics and all the rest. So that kind of thing is going on. But I also, Mike, I think it's a very low key election, unlike the referendum last June. I think it's very low key. I think Theresa May at the moment, if she steps out of line in regard to making any comment on Israel and calling it an occupied territory and all the rest, which I think she has done in the past, then I think God is gonna, has something to say about that.
Well, I would agree. Now, Mark, I want you to tell our listeners just quickly. You have two parties there. There's the Labour Party and the Tories. Tell us, who's the conservative, who's the liberal, and how that all works.
Well, we got, a good point. We've got more than three parties. So we have major parties of the Tory party, major party being the Labour Party, major party then being, or has been in the past, of Liberal Party, which is Lloyd George at the round about the First World War. Those histories go back to that. The Labour Party grew out of the temperance movement, encouraging people not to drink, and it grew out of, I would say, very, very sort of strong Christian roots, which is rather interesting, where on certain sections of it that have been there since late 50s, 60s, a strong Marxist bent, basically. So that is very much involved. So Theresa May is the Conservative Party. Now, Jeremy Corbyn is Labour. Jeremy Corbyn is 67 years of age, has been to me, he should be a university professor, being an academic, discussing what it would have been like to have tea with Lenin or Karl Marx. I mean, that is the truth of it on one level. Theresa May, I mean, and also Jeremy Corbyn during the Blair government. I mean, because Tony Blair had such a big majority, he was just on the backbenches, just being a pain in the backside. I don't think anyone expected him to win the party vote. To win the leadership. Many Labour MPs were absolutely appalled that he actually won the leadership, which says something in regard to the elite. The Labour Party are really in serious trouble, because within London you have a number of constituencies that are very much pro-Remain. Outside London, their seats, the seats that they have won for many years, are pro-Leave. So they are a divided party. Theresa May is the daughter of a vicar, was the longest serving Home Secretary in recent years, if ever. I think she's very good at being given a brief to carry out, she is, of course, being tested. She has two advisors that I have to confess I didn't even realize that she had. And the reason why I make a sarcastic comment about how much money they actually earn is because if you divide £280,000 by £30,000, that's the number of policemen that we could actually get instead of paying these particular advisors this amount of money. She's also very interesting because she once described the Tory party as the nasty party. And there are certain aspects of that in regard to how that certain people are out of touch with how difficult it is for various sections of our society. Remember also, for you guys over there, the important thing is to say this, is that the Tory party under the prime ministership of Ted Heath in 1973, having won an election, I believe, in 1972, and put it in a very small square in the manifesto of the then Tory run for the election, just said that we will take the UK into the EU. So the Tories are responsible for that, but there's always been infighting within the party over Europe since that time, and that then eventually manifested itself in regard to UKIP.
Interesting, very interesting. Now, Mark, fasten your seatbelt for this question. I don't want you to fall out of your chair. I just want you to calm down. But you know, the press over the weekend, with everything going on in the world, and I saw this on our side of the pond and on your side of the pond, was more interested in the fact that the Queen drove herself to church and back in her Jaguar, and also Prince, whatever his name was, playing polo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Prince Charles. Yeah. Prince Charles.
With some American actress on his arm, and whether they were dating or not. What role does the royal family really play in your government, and are they globalist?
Well. Talk about.
I told you, put your seatbelt on.
I'm just gonna quickly strap up for this one. The fact is that, you know, under Cromwell, etc., and then of course Charles I came back. That's how Parliament came about. The Queen, in all seriousness, regularly has an audience with the Prime Minister of our country once a week. And if we go back to the early 50s, I think 1952, in her coronation, we then trace back how many prime ministers that she's actually seen, and she knew Churchill personally. Personally, I think I'm just trying to think. The bottom line is they should have no play in making decisions for our nations and all that. Even though Prince Charles writes loads of letters to various government ministers protesting about this, that, and the other. And I think there was even a picture of him having a finger wagged at him, I think, by Evelyn Rothschild. The thing is, they are an institution. Prince Philip is what was it? He was quoted once that said, if he was given another life, what would you like to be or come back as? And I think he said, I would like to come back as a disease and wipe out various things of the population. We can only speculate, Mike. I think you know where I'm going, and I'm going to be a bit circumspect on that one.
Well, I can understand that. It's just always been something here in the States we've wondered, is like, what role does the Queen really play in the day-to-day business, and what really is going on over there? But you did a good job of explaining it.
Well, but the thing is, it's ceremonial, Mike, and it's also there to take money off American tourists.
Yeah. my wife was trying to hold something up for me to read to you, but I can't read her writing there. So
I'm asking a question. Is Charles related to Vlad the Impaler?
okay, so she wants to know, is Charles related to Vlad the Impaler?
Because he bragged about it.
Did he? He may in fact be. I've never inspected his teeth lately. But I really don't know.
Well, back to all seriousness now. Your economy there in the UK. I know you and I have talked a bit about it. You're working like crazy right now, which is a great thing. But what is the overall economy like there, and what's the feeling of your country for where you're heading?
Well, it's very interesting because I think we've always had this discussion. When John Major was previous Prime Minister, just before 97, he always used to talk about the green shoots and the fact that we can see an economy doing okay. We for many years have seen a massive decline of the manufacturing industry, and in 1981, a real sort of resurgence of finance and the City of London. The other thing is that people want to talk down how well things are and what's going on in regard to the Brexit and all the rest, and people like Nick Clegg or etc. and other politicians going, oh, this is going to be awful, we're not going to be part of the single market. I just want to explain to you guys that the single market is actually Europe. That is what the single market is, and we will still trade with Europe, and Europe will still trade with us, because otherwise I can't see Germany stop selling their BMW cars to us, or French cheese. But I'm not saying it's easy, but we have a long record of entrepreneurialism, and we need to find that. Under the Blair government from 97 to 2007, there was a massive load of jobs created that were government jobs and civil servants and all the rest. We are going to really have to look at, our whole manufacturing base and all the rest. And the problem with banks, Mike, is that they need to lend more to small businesses and to encourage that growth. And I'm hoping, our government speak over that. But that is, they've got to really walk that through on a personal level, because at times I work in the TV and film industry, which if you guys stop investing in films over here, then that affects us. Yes, there is a tightening of belts, because there is an element of fear, but we also have a major debt problem. We've got a lot of cash. We've had quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, 4 infinitum. We've just been printing loads of money. A load of that from 2008 up to 2011-12, I would say, has been really reused to refinance the banks and not see that filter down. What I'd like to say is that we have got to be more positive, and I think for those people that really want to plow their own furrow, I think they're excited about what's going to be happening. But those people that work for government or in government jobs and all the rest, it's a different field, because it's a different mindset. That's partly because we've forgotten how to run our own country for 43 years.
Well, interesting, Mark, and as always, very insightful on your part, and we're just blessed to have you as a part of the Watchmen's Report team, and we're going to continue with Mark. He's going to be a regular contributor here, because give us another week and something will change.
Absolutely.
And Mark, what I'd like to do right now is, how can people get a hold of you? How can they find you?
Well, they can find me go to my website, www.creativehubproductionslimited productions.com. Find me there. I made a film, as we know, 2 years ago about American politics, set slightly in the future, where we take the book of Daniel and set it in a modern context of Washington politics. Please go on YouTube. And Mike, thank you very much for posting the film on here, The Watchmen, because that was amazing. Please go on YouTube and look up Between Lambs and Lions. My email is on my website. But there's a Facebook page called Across the Pond. You can find me there as well.
That's an awesome Facebook page, Across the Pond, folks.
Yeah. On
Facebook. And also, if you want to get a hold of Mark, go ahead and email me directly, Mike Kerr, Kerr 777 @gmail.com. Mark, you want to take us out tonight with a prayer?
I'd love to take that. What an honor. That'd be fantastic. Let's just pray. Father God, I just thank you that you are giving us this technology that I can talk to Mike and Jeannie and America and the rest of the world in this way. And it is such an honor. Father, we just bring our world to you. We just bring all the people that are really seeking you and trying to listen to what you're saying to us as individuals, our nations, and the world at this time. Father, what's on my heart is that Donald Trump needs to move the embassy to Jerusalem as soon as that waiver is coming up. We pray that he doesn't waiver it and that he actions that. Father, I just I bring our nation to you, bring our election. We just place it in your hands for your will to be done in this situation. And Father, I just pray that you really encourage all of us that are really looking at events, working out what's going on, making sure that there's enough oil in our lamps, that we will really bring other people to you that don't know you, and then we would just pray about them for them to come to salvation. So Father God, I just pray that you would just expand the Watchman family. And we just thank you for what you are doing. We thank you that we have a living relationship with you, and that our priority is to bring other people to you. So just commit all this. Bless Mike and Jeannie and everyone that contributes to this amazing channel. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Mark, thank you so much. As always, we appreciate it. And I want you folks to know his dedication. It's like, I don't know, maybe close to 11 o'clock at night now there, and he's worked all day. You know, I mean, I think he worked till like 8 o'clock at night. So we really appreciate you being a part of our team, Mark. God bless you for everything you're doing. Folks, come to our website, hearthewatchman.com. Go there. You can see everything we're doing, but you can also click on the information button and the contact button. Send me an email through there if you want to, and I'll connect you up with Mark. Let's spread the word of Jesus Christ and everything we're doing as best we can to the other side of the pond, and let them spread it back to us. That's the way it works as the remnant body. So Mark, again, thank you so much, folks. God bless each and every one of you for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you on the next Watchman's Report. Until then, see you later.